March 16th. This is the Validator Meetup for the month of March. Today we have Felipe and Zhang with us from Validator Relations from the Gnosis Chain team to talk about the Shapella upgrade. Real quick, just some context here about Shapella. So it's fast approaching. It's going to be in Q1 of obviously this year. So I think for Ethereum, that probably means April. So the Shanghai and Capella upgrade are informally known as Shapella. Shanghai is the name given to the execution layer upgrade, and Capella is the name of the coinciding consensus layer upgrade. So thus the merging of the two names into Shapella. Gnosis Chain is capable of implementing this important upgrade due to its beacon chain architecture, making it fully compatible with Ethereum. And obviously the most important feature is that it enables GNO withdrawals for validators or for stakers. So I will turn it over to Felipe and Zhang, and they're going to share their screen and go over some key important information about what to do as a validator and how to get ready for the Shapella upgrade. So Felipe, how you doing? And Zhang?
Awesome. Thanks, John.
Yeah, no worries.
So I'm going to share my screen. Wait a second. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I think... Yeah, is this the correct slide?
Yeah, we're good to go. Looks
Okay,
great.
cool. Hi everyone, I'm Zeng, and today Felipe and I are going to talk about the Shapella hard fork. And yeah, like what John just said, the Shapella hard fork is going to happen in Q1 or Q2 this year. The exact date is yet determined, and one of the key important part of this hard fork is that it will enable the withdrawal of validator account balance from the consensus layer back to the execution layer. And today, this talk we are going to focusing on what the validator should do. And yeah, Shanghai is for the execution layer and Capella is for the consensus layer. So there are also a few EIPs that get included in this hard fork. For example, EIP 3651, which makes it less expensive to access the Coinbase address, and EIP 3855 for gas optimizations when pushing the zero to the stack, and EIP 3860, which limits the size of deploy contracts and makes deployment a bit more expensive, and EIP 36049, which deprecates the self-destruct opcodes. Alright, before we introduce how withdrawal works on Gnosis, I'm going to talk about how it works on Ethereum, which is a very similar experience. So a lot of you might have known to activate a validator in the Ethereum, you have to deposit 32 ETH, and this 32 ETH is basically locked in the consensus layer, and there's no way to withdraw back to the execution layer for now. So the validators can earn rewards by performing duties such as proposing a block or making attestations, and also they can get punished if they are acted maliciously. So the balance actually are fluctuating. And for the withdrawal, there are two kinds of withdrawal. The first one is partial withdrawal. This kind of withdrawal is done automatically. So any amounts that exceeds 32 ETH will get withdrawn to the ETH1 withdrawal address on the execution layer. And another kind of withdrawal is full withdrawal. Essentially, this one is performing a voluntary exit. So the validator has to sign a voluntary exit message and broadcast it into the network. Once it is included in the block, the validator has to wait for a certain period of time to perform the full withdrawal. So all the balance from the validator account balance will get withdrawn to this ETH1 withdrawal address. And this ETH1 withdrawal address is related to the withdrawal credential, which is very important, and we are going to talk about it later. And yeah, so essentially that is how withdrawal works in Ethereum. And next, Felipe is going to talk about how it works on the Gnosis. So next, Felipe.
Thank you, Zeng, for explaining this. Yeah, so let's talk about how Gnosis is different from Ethereum. And actually, for the end user, so probably most of you, it's actually quite exactly the same. So you still have the same software, you have the same principles, you have the same exit strategies, slashing, whatever, it's really the same. But technically, there are a few differences if you're interested in that. So, of course, on Gnosis, we have this base token, which is XDAI, and validators are, reused GNO. So that's a bit different from how Ethereum works. So there are a few things we had to change, right? So on Ethereum, when you withdraw, basically on the execution layer side of things, they just increment your balance, which is straightforward and easily doable. But in our case, we have to interact with an ERC20 token, the GNO one, in order to pay, rewards, basically. So yeah, there's this idea of a deposit contract, which right now takes GNO. And on Ethereum, this contract, contains ETH, but it's actually burned, kind of. No one can ever access it, and yeah, it's effectively burned. On Gnosis, it will be a bit different. So actually, the deposit contract will also be the withdrawal contract. So when you get GNO back from that contract, it takes the GNO that was deposited when creating validators. Of course, there is kind of an issue with that, because if everyone were to withdraw at the same time, for example, which technically isn't possible because of the withdrawal queue, but let's just imagine, then of course that contract would not have enough GNO to pay everyone out, which is a problem. But actually, it's not that much of a problem because we can monitor that contract, and then Gnosis will top that contract up with additional GNO. And if you were to execute a withdrawal and it failed because, for example, the only case where it could fail is that there's not enough GNO in the withdrawal contract, then there's simply a failure condition, let's say, where those failed transactions are queued. And then for every slot afterwards, as long as there are failed transactions in the queue, they will just get re-executed. So for example, that number is not quite defined yet, but around 4 to 16 failed withdrawals will get executed per slot in addition to new withdrawals. So this would end up in, everyone getting that GNO, basically. Next slide, please. Right, so this is just kind of a general idea of how, things look, kind of. So on the left side, you have Ethereum, and the right side, you have Gnosis. For both, of course, you have execution layer and a consensus layer. So as mentioned before, Shanghai on the execution layer, Shapella on the consensus one. And as I mentioned previously, so on the Ethereum execution layer side of things, withdrawing is simply just, okay, we mint native tokens, that's it. So super easy. And on the Gnosis side, there's this deposit contract, which is a withdrawal contract. Basically it's just exactly what I just explained, but in a kind of graphic way. Yeah, let's move to the next slide. Okay, so this is, I guess, the more important part. So the question, what should validators, so I'm assuming most of you actually do. Actually, again, it's quite easy. Like for Ethereum, basically you just have to upgrade your client, right? So it's like for the merge, basically. That was a bit more difficult because you had to actually spin up. No, never mind. Sorry. It's the same basically. You just have to update your clients. So those versions are not defined yet because we're not ready for mainnet at this point, but we're getting there. So most of the clients already implement some features we actually use ourselves in DevNet right now, but there's no mainnet config yet. But yeah, I'll take this opportunity to talk about two new clients we're onboarding right now. So the documentation is being finalized. So soon you'll be able to use Aragon and Nimbus, well, Aragon on the execution layer and Nimbus on the consensus layer for Gnosis, which wasn't the case before. So they are now tested and work, and we're finishing the documentation. So that's a good news for everyone who likes those clients and likes client diversity as well, of course. Yeah, next slide. So there's also one tiny difference, but it actually doesn't concern most of you. So maybe like 4 to 5% of people have to do this. Most likely you don't. So this is a bit more technical, but basically there are two different ways of withdrawal credentials, which are the 0, 1, and 0, 0, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Basically, if you created your keys in a specific way, for example, if you did it with the CLI by withdrawal address, then you're fine and you don't have to do anything. And if you didn't, and if you have those 0, 0 credentials, which you can easily check, then tooling will be provided for you. So you have to do this step. If you don't, then you can't participate in partial withdrawals, and you will also not be able to, completely exit and do a full withdrawal. But at any time, even if you don't do this immediately, you can just do it in a few months or whatever, and then you can still get all your rewards back. So there's nothing lost if you don't do this immediately. So don't stress over it. You have all the time in the world, and again, only a very slight fraction of validators are actually concerned by this. And with that, I'll give it back to Zeng.
Thanks, Felipe. And yeah, how do you check your withdrawal credentials? Basically, there are a few ways. The first one is you can navigate to the beacon gnosischain.com and find your validators by either validator index or public key, and click the deposit tab, and you can find a withdrawal credential prefix under the bottom. So for those with 0x01s, you don't have to do anything, but with 0x00, you need to perform the conversion into 0x01 in order to be eligible for withdrawals. So another way to check withdrawal credential is just to find the deposit data JSON file while you generate the validator keys, and you can find the withdrawal credentials in the second field as listed in this slide. And for the tooling, you can use tools such as ifdo to generate the conversion signature, and use the beacon chain UI to submit the signature and broadcast to the network. Currently, this function is not available for Gnosis, but it is soon. It is currently being developed, and yeah. So that is all from today's presentations. Any questions?
Wow, thank you so much, guys. That was super informative. Yeah, any questions from the community? You can either unmute your mic and just ask Zhang and Felipe directly, or if you'd like to just type in an answer in the chat, you can do that over here on the right-hand side. So go for it if you've got any burning questions for the two of them while they're here. Looks like Dirk has a question.
Indeed, I do. Maybe I missed it, but did you talk about partial withdrawals, and did you mention when they would occur? Or was this not part of this presentation? Because that was the question I had last time.
So the partial withdrawals in Ethereum, it will be done by a process called sweeping. So it's basically for every block, every 16 validators will be checked. If their account balance exceeds 32 ETH, those extra ETH will get withdrawn back to the ETH1 withdrawal address. Yeah, so and the validators don't need to initiate anything. The extra ETH will just get withdrawn back automatically.
Okay, so it happens when a validator does attestations, then when they are selected for that, and then the balance is above 32 ETH, then that surplus will be transferred to the ETH1 address.
Correct, and this is
Ah,
done
cool.
by from the validator index zeros, and like for every 16 validators it will get detected, and yeah, it will ongoing up to the last validators and then continue to the first validator again, so like it is around clock base. Yeah.
Cool. And Ale has a question. Is it in the plan to have a UI for withdrawals?
Yeah, so that's a good question actually. I don't think so because most of it needs to be done directly from the consensus layer node. So you have to, well, the partial withdrawals, as Zeng just said, are automatic, so you don't need to do anything for that. So no UI is necessary. But for full withdrawals, so when you exit your validator, for that you actually need to sign a message with your consensus layer node. So that's also basically it. Maybe on DApp nodes, but I'm not aware of this, so don't quote me on that at all. But maybe DApp node will provide something for this, but for withdrawal specifically, there will not be any UI. Yeah, okay, I think it's now showing that's for well, if you have those 00 withdrawal credentials, then yes, there is a UI to change them to 01 credentials. You still have to do something in the command line, but the rest will be done in an interface, sorry, provided by Beacon Chain. But yeah. Hopefully that answers the question. And there's no provisional date for activation yet. Yeah, so as we said, so we're expecting it to arrive on Q1 or Q2, a bit after Ethereum. So Ethereum also doesn't have a date yet. It's probably going to be mid-April for Ethereum, but for Gnosis, it's not set in stone yet.
Cool. Any other questions? I think you guys did a great job. We'll make these slides available to everyone so that they can go over them, and all the links will be live, so you'll have those resources there for you. Yeah, any final questions before we say goodbye? Okay. Felipe and Zhang, thank you so much for your time. And this Validator Meetup call happens once a month. It's always on the third Thursday of each month. This call is added to the Gnosis DAO public calendar, and I will share the link to that so you can subscribe. I'll do that in the Validator chat and the general chat. We will see you next month on April 20th. And we will also go over Shapella, info on that call because we'll be closer to the date. So, yeah, stay tuned, everyone. And actually, yeah, please share your ETH address, and we'll drop you a POAP for coming on the call today. And you can do that now, or you can just do that at your convenience, and we'll drop you a POAP. So, thank you so much, everyone, for making the time, and we'll see you next month for the Validator Meetup. Take care.
Thank you, guys.